Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds. I'm a property investor and I've been buying houses now for 12 years. I've done over 300 property deals, and guess what? In this video right now, I'm going to be answering your property investment questions. So please do me a massive favor and comment below your questions. Any question around buy, refurbish, refinance, about tax, about deal sourcing, flips, best areas, HMOs, lease option agreements, rent to rents, finding tenants, managing tenants, anything at all about property investment, comment below and I'll do my best to answer. And a little disclaimer is I'm going to be answering based on my experience and my opinion. Of course, you have to make up your own mind when deciding what to buy, what to invest in, and which tenants to choose. But I'm just going to be doing my very best to use my experience to point you in the right direction and give you some guidance. So please do me a big favor as well. Comment your questions, but also hit the like button and also subscribe to the channel, which you can do below so that you don't miss a future video. Let's see what questions we've got from last week. And while I'm answering these questions from last week, maybe you'll have an offshoot of a question, because one question might lead to another question. Go crazy in the comments. I'll do my best to answer every single question that I possibly can. So we have a question from last week that says, I'm about to get my very first rent to rent. Congratulations. It's a 5-bed house and doesn't have a HMO license. When I apply for the HMO license, how quick will I be able to move tenants into the property, assuming I've already sorted out fire doors, etc.? So the good news is, when you apply for a HMO license, you don't need to wait for your license to be given to you. You just have to apply and then you can start renting out the rooms straight away. So that's really good news. Do be guided by your local council and of course make sure that you've submitted the license application before you start renting the rooms out, but you do not need to wait until your license has been approved. All right, next, Svetlana Carter. Thank you for the videos you put out every day. Do you know what's the best way to increase the credit score and how important is it in getting a mortgage? So, having a good credit score is extremely helpful when you're a property investor and you're buying properties. And ways to improve your credit score, number one, don't have any unpaid debts. I'm not talking about debts that are, like you could have a debt on a personal loan, or you could have a mortgage, that's a debt. But then you've got debt that's unpaid when it should be paid. Overdue debts, should we say. So an example of this would be, I had a mobile phone, and there was a little bit of a problem when I cancelled the contract. I couldn't cancel the contract, I kept trying to cancel it and they were making it difficult, and they were saying you need to cancel. You can only cancel by cancelling on the 30th, and I kept forgetting to cancel on the 30th, and it was just, in my opinion, it was a little bit of a bad network. And in the end, I just said, look, I'm cancelling, please cancel my direct debit. And, oh, you need to call us on the 30th. And I just cancelled it myself. And then what happened is, because I didn't cancel it properly, because I just cancelled it at my bank, and then I got a new phone contract and moved on, I ended up owing them like £12.50, apparently. And they sent me a letter and £12, and I just thought, I binned it. Whatever, stupid company. Now, about 6 months later, when I was buying one of my investment properties, my mortgage broker said to me, I'm really sorry, but there's a problem and your lender is saying that there's an outstanding debt that you've got, and it caused an issue. I suddenly got really worried. I said, what's the problem? I've always paid my debts. I've always paid my bills. I've got no issues. I always pay on time. And they said, well, let's have a look. And we went through and we found out it was this little mobile phone debt. And because of that £12.50 outstanding, I was being declined a £250,000 loan to buy an investment property that was going to make me about £50,000 in profit. So I had to then go to the shop, I had to settle my £12.50 bill, and then my mortgage lender said, now it's been settled, we can continue, and all was good. But that could have scuppered my deal. So I think it's just really important to be mindful of things like that. Make sure that you do. I learned a big lesson from that. The importance of, even if it's a really small little thing, and even if they're in the wrong and you think that, oh, I've been done over, just make sure for your credit score's sake that you've got no unpaid late payments on anything. So get those paid off. Another thing to improve your credit score is just simple things like being on the electoral roll. If you're not registered to vote, it does not help your credit score at all. But I think most importantly, I would just register for a site such as Experian or Noddle, I think it's called, one that we use, and it will tell you what your credit score is, and it will tell you ways to improve it. So it is important. If you have got a bad credit, don't panic. There are things you can do in property without any credit at all. So, or you can joint venture with someone that's got good credit on certain deals. I hope that helps. All right, Matt, I have £300,000 cash to invest in property, so I'm relatively cash rich. Unfortunately, I have also a poorly paid day job that pays £20,000 per year. How can I get a buy-to-let mortgage, as most want a job that pays at least £25,000 a year? Thanks, Matt. Matt, I think you'll be okay, because a buy-to-let mortgage, if you were getting a residential mortgage to live in yourself, then you'd be very restricted on what you could buy, because if your salary is 20 grand, they'd only lend you a very, very small amount of money. However, if it's a buy-to-let mortgage, you should be fine, because buy-to-let is a business, and as long as the lender can see that the house that you're buying, they'll value it based on bricks and mortar, and they'll value it based on the rentability, on the commercial aspect. Your salary, how much you're earning, they're not too concerned about. So I'd advise getting a good mortgage broker and helping them work with you to find the right mortgage. Caveman, is it harder to get a multi-let mortgage for a first-time buyer at 21 years old? Yeah, it is. If you're trying to get a first-time property and you want to do it as a multi-let, it's possible, but it is hard. You're better off starting with a single let and then moving on to a multi-let. It's not to say it's impossible, but you will find many lenders there'll be restrictions. Thanjila, do you arrange for a viewing first and then discuss rent to rent, or once you get there? Or should you discuss before? You don't discuss rent to rent before going to a property, because you want to do it in person, but you should definitely tell them that you're not going to be living there yourself and it will be a corporate let. So I'll just say, hey, I love the property on 32 Church Road. Is it still available? Great. I'd love to come and look round. Listen, I'm not going to be living there myself. It will be a corporate let, but I'm free next week on Tuesday or Thursday. Which one's best? So I've told them. I didn't make a big deal. I didn't have a discussion about it. And then when I get there, I'll look round, and if it's suitable, I'll say, great, it looks really good. Look, as I mentioned on the phone, I'm not going to be living here myself. It will be a corporate let, and I'll be putting people in here on short stay lets. However, I can guarantee the rent to the landlord, and I could do it over a long-term let. So what's he looking for? Is he looking for a long-term let? What's his situation? And then start having a discussion. Easy peasy. Burning desire. Should we wait until property prices start to go down again, or pay excessive prices right now, like 95,000 instead of 80,000 on a 2-bed terrace down north? The problem with waiting for house prices to go down is they might not go down ever. We don't know for sure. You're saying, oh man, 95 grand is expensive compared to what it was. It was 80 grand. Maybe I should wait until it becomes 80 grand again. But if it was 80 and then it goes up to 95, it might just keep going up to 110. And then it might drop back to 95, and then it goes up again to 150. It might never be worth 80 grand again. So, if you look back over history, look at people in 2002, when house prices were going crazy. And they were like, oh, let's just wait until they go back like they were in the late 90s. Well, that never happened, did it? So I would say, buy a property, but make sure you're buying it for cash flow. Maybe buy it below market value. Make sure it's cash flow and positive. But you'd be in a fantasy world if you think that you can just wait and it will be the price that you want it to be eventually, because it might not. Shahid Hussain, how do you find good tenants? I find good tenants by buying in decent areas. If you buy in the middle of a red light district, Benefit Street, horrible area with broken glass everywhere and mattresses in the street, and then you're trying to find a good, nice working young family. Ain't gonna happen, right? So the first thing is you wanna make sure that before you buy a property, you're buying in an area where and I'm not talking about buying a really fancy area, because that won't make sense from a return on investment point of view. You wanna buy in an area that's not great, but is maybe a little bit up and coming, where you are gonna get decent tenants. Secondly is, you wanna find a good management company that will reference the tenants, vet them well. And then thirdly, rather than finding good tenants, market the property and let the good tenants find you. All right, Gonzalo. Thanks for answering, Samuel. Would I need a HMO license if I rent a house, 3 beds, live in 1 room, and rent out the others? No, generally speaking, across the UK, you will not need a HMO license if you're going to do that. However, check with your council because some areas have got very strange rules. All right, last question. Glam Azone. How to find a pitch for BRRR strategy. I live in London and everything is ridiculously expensive. How to find a pitch or a patch? Ooh, I'm not sure what you said pitch, but I'm not sure if you mean patch. I'll answer both, okay? So how do you find a pitch for the BRRR strategy? If you're pitching to agents, I'm really not sure if you mean pitch or patch. If you're pitching to agents for BRRR strategy, how I do it is I tell them I'm looking for flips. Okay? Buy, refurbish, refinance, rent is very simple. You buy a house, you add value, and then you refinance it. You need to push up the value of the house. The exact type of property that would work for a buy, refurbish, refinance would also lend itself to a flip. And a flip is a property that you buy, do up, and sell. Because you need to, when you do it up, there needs to be profit. There needs to be some margin in the deal. So if I'm pitching to estate agents for buy, refurbish, refinance, I'm going to say to an estate agent, I'm looking for a flip. Because that's language that they understand. I'm looking for something that I can fix up and sell. Have you got anything? That's how I pitch it. To answer your other question, which I'm not sure if you meant, but patch, how do I find a patch for buy, refurbish, refinance strategy? I live in London, everything's ridiculously expensive. It doesn't matter if everything's expensive. If the average house is £1 million in your area, in your patch, well then you just find something that is run down and needs a load of work doing that you can buy for 500,000 or 600,000 that needs a couple hundred spending on it to make it worth $1 million. And then when it's $1 million, you refinance it, and then you pull out 750 and then you rent it. Now you've got to make sure if you're in expensive areas that the end, not only is the end value, are you able to pull your money out, but also you need to make sure that if you're refinancing it, the interest payments and the rent, you need to be in profit. There's no point refinancing a property to find that your mortgage payments are going to be £1,000 a month and the rent is going to be £1,000 a month, because then the rent is just going to pay for your mortgage and you're going to have no money left over. So you want to make sure, if you're doing a BRRR strategy in an area, maybe if you're doing it in London, you want to make sure that the rent is going to be making you a good profit. Maybe it's a HMO property. Maybe it's serviced accommodation. I got a friend called Tony who did a deal similar to this in London. Really nice, very expensive. £3 million house, I think it is now. But he's renting it out as serviced accommodation, broken it up, renting it out as serviced accommodation. He's making a profit of £5,000 a month. So there really is no one patch for buy, refurbish, refinance. It depends on the deal, but you need to know what you're looking for, do your due diligence, and pitch it right to agents. I'm out, I'm done. I hope it was helpful. Comment your questions below, hit like, and I'll see you next time.